Welcome to the DSEF. The Direct Selling Executives Forum was created to be a place where real direct selling executives and vendors in the space can come out and share solutions to challenges that face us all in the marketplace. Our guest today is going to be unpacking a topic and sharing their raw thoughts for you to learn from. All right, let's go meet our guest. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Direct Selling Executives Forum Open Forum. And today is a treat, right? We pick all kinds of frameworks to unpack. And today we're going to be talking about wildly relevant leadership in 2026. And what's fun about this practice and everything that we're going to be putting together today, the guest that we get to bring today, right? Today we've brought Shannon Rheault and this gal, who you're going to meet in just a moment, has been a field leader. Okay, she's been director of training and events. She's been a regional sales manager, been a keynote speaker. So you've been in the field and then on the corporate team and now advising corporate teams. So all three seats. And so she has a framework she's taught in her programs with TAP. And I'm really excited for us to kind of walk through why not, wins, pitfalls today, and just excited for the session. So thank you for dialing in. For those of you that are on YouTube or whether you're joining us here on Spotify, she has worked globally in partnership with across over 70 countries. So it's not just work inside the US or work inside of Canada. Okay, as you meet Shannon and here, you're in for a treat and with a group of the accountability partners. So with that, I'm going to pass the show to Amer. Go ahead and kick us off. Let's get the show started.
Thank you, Ben. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Shannon. Thank you for joining us today. We are so excited to have you, and we can't wait to talk about some frameworks, but let's hear your story. Those who may not know, who may not be familiar with your journey in the direct selling space, what has your experience been like, and how has it led you to, where you are today?
Thank you for having me. It's been a long and windy road. That's what it's been. My first direct sales was Jewelway. I don't even know if anyone remembers that. I wasn't technically even allowed to sell. I was so young, but I've always been interested in, all of the, I guess, the traditional direct sales companies, always kind of had my hand in it. But it wasn't until I had lost my position in the oil and gas industry. I always say that I went from one oil to another because I went into an essential oils company. And I learned a lot around the corporate side. There was a gap that we had to fill between corporate and the field and get everyone working towards that same goal. And that really excited me. And I think what really attracted me to the direct sales industry was the field. So that was the piece that really did it for me. And I could see that it was changing people's lives. But I could also see there was a lot of gaps. A lot of folks didn't know what to do. And I could see the reputation of direct selling kind of looking poorly. I wanted to be one of those people who helped change that. I started my own company, a training leadership development company, for lack of a better term. And from there, what we did is we kind of thought it would be low-hanging fruit. And I realized that it wasn't quite as easy as I thought it was going to be. Yeah. So we've definitely had some work to do in that space for people to understand the value. And what we saw was a lot of direct selling companies, allowing their field to do the training. And that's really great. And that's really important. But there were some pieces of that were missing. And not everything, I shouldn't say not everyone is duplicatable. Lots of processes and systems can be duplicatable, but people can't be. And so you take a really charismatic person and you put them in direct sales and they might do very well. And then take someone who's quite shy or doesn't feel confident or doesn't really understand that selling is just talking about something you love. That's where we knew we could fill a gap. And on top of that, one of the pieces that I had to really look at was corporate. And so all of our programs, you don't get to do one without the other. We teach corporate what's important. What is the modern direct seller looking like? What do they need to be successful? What is the modern consumer looking for? So we help bridge that gap.
One of the things I think is so interesting, though, I love about your story is you did have the time in the field. You did get a chance to see the transformation that happens in our space where someone goes from, can I do this? I mean, I hope I can do this. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to do the work to do this. And then they get that result. Kept me addicted too for so many years is that moment, whether it's a convention or the celebratory dinner or the superset or whatever it is, where someone comes across the room and says, you're never going to believe what happened this week. Like that is my favorite opener,
Mhm.
Shannon, to any conversation. And it's the part that I think we all get hooked on is that
Yeah.
Yeah.
transformation does happen in this
Yeah.
business when it's done
Yeah.
well with people. And there's
Yeah.
frameworks that are working today that are relevant and then ones that have been stuck. And so I'm excited for this discussion. Back to you. Good
Cool.
stuff.
Let's talk about the frameworks. This is my favorite part. So you've developed a framework for widely relevant leadership. What inspired you to create it? And can you share a bit of backstory of it?
So everything that we do at the accountability partners at my company is we really want to get away from that magic pill, that easy button. I always carry this with me. All an easy button does is makes a sound. Yeah, that's it.
That's
Those easy
perfect.
buttons don't actually work, and you actually have to put in the work. And
Yeah.
so we started to really understand human behavior, and that's really what we were looking at was the psychology around direct selling,
Mm,
around people behavior, how to influence that behavior. So we could give them all of the magic pills on the planet, and but then we still couldn't control the outcome. And so we started to really dive into, okay, where were we seeing success and
mm,
where were we seeing things that acted like magic pills? It was a placebo. It wasn't really doing anything. And so we started to look at, okay, so out of all of the years in my industry, in leadership development and in training, and understanding how to influence the behaviors of other people, what could we put together that we could offer pretty much any organization to fill some of those gaps so that they
mm,
understood what was really important? And so each of our frameworks, we don't just have one, we have several actually.
mm.
They are built on three very strong observances that I've seen around the world. And when it comes to what the foundation needs to be in place. So,
Yeah.
if you want to influence the people around you, whether that's your team members, whether that's your own leader, whether it's the people that report into you, whether it's a direct sales
Mm,
team, which is, a different beast altogether, how do you influence those people? Because they don't really work for you, right?
mm.
So, we knew the number one contributor to success was trust. So
Yes.
that was the very first framework we ever built was our trust framework. That's not a program per se. I mean, do we do workshops on it? Absolutely. We
Mm,
have lots of activities and it's pretty much part of everything that we do in our frameworks. But what were the pieces of trust where people were breaking it in direct sales specifically? What we did is we studied some of those frameworks that already exist. So we looked at things like the trust equation. That's a very familiar trust model that's out there. But we still felt like things had shifted in the values and the behaviors of people so much that folks had evolved, that the expectation in the workplace was quite a bit different than it was, let's say, 10, 20 years ago when I,
see.
Sure.
actually it was a lot longer than that I entered the workforce. But there were things that I didn't look for then because it wasn't an option, but now is an expectation. And so,
Yes.
how could we bridge that gap? So, we looked first and foremost into our trust framework. And that trust framework, I'll give you a bit of I guess, a peek into
Yeah.
what that looks like. But before I do, let me tell you the other two things. So,
Sure.
trust we knew needed to be foundational. And then what I started to do was with my team, of course, I don't do anything alone. We started to look at, okay, so if trust was present, and it was going both ways. What were the superpowers of those who really were able to influence? And it was the same. It didn't matter what country I went to. It didn't matter what industry I looked in. It didn't matter the ages and the generations of folks. We saw that the people that had the most influence were people who led with curiosity and what
Yeah.
that means. And we can dive into that.
Mhm.
And people who built strong relationships. And
Love
when
that.
you hold those two superpowers and you build it upon the foundation of trust, all five pillars of trust, that is, what you'll get is a magic formula. And I
Mm.
said there's no easy buttons or magic pills, but that's, I would say, is as close as you're going to get.
I love that
Yeah.
picture of trust because
Yeah.
there's people who still skip that step and then say, "Wait, what's
Yes.
going on?" And when there's no trust, there's no communication.
Yeah.
Nothing's happening until there's
Yeah.
trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ma-
That's
Many,
so true.
yeah. And many times on the open forum, guys, we recommend books. And just as Shannon's talking, there's one that's a little bit academic, but I think is really on point for what Shannon's sharing with us today.
Yeah.
It's Stephen Covey's son. So if you haven't seen the book Speed of Trust, if you haven't been through that, I'd really encourage
Mm.
as executives leading, and Shannon's gonna have some resources she'll share today that you'll be able to tap into. But
Yeah.
whether you're at the gym or traveling,
Hmm.
audiobook to start getting into your brain to be thinking about these frameworks and prepping
Yeah.
what Shannon's doing, I'd encourage you guys to plug in Speed of Trust on your Audible or whatever you like to listen to. A lot of us think, oh, it's the offer. Oh, it's the value. Oh, it's the
Yeah.
hook. And it's like, yeah, those things are important. It's good that you're listening to Alex Ramosi. Got it. We
Yeah.
love that. You
Yeah.
listen to Alex Ramosi. We love
Yeah.
that you listen to Russell Brunson.
Yeah.
But one second, it's trust
Yeah.
first, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Shannon's right on. Where there is no trust, there's no relationship. There's no
No.
communication. It doesn't matter what the offer or hook is when it comes from untrusted, unconnected source.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So catch that. That's good, Shannon.
Yeah.
Let's peek right into it. How does the
Sure.
framework really work? If
Yeah.
you put it in practice, like the trust framework and the superpower to influence, so how does all of those framework really work if you put it into practice?
So I think if you ask people if people trusted them, most people would say, yes, of course. And my favorite question to ask when I ask that question is a follow-up question. And I say, how do you know? How do you
Yeah.
know?
Hmm.
Yeah.
There's a lot of assumptions that we make, and especially if you're in a leadership position, that if
True.
you control anything about another person's success, likely you're not going to get full transparency. Some of the answers that I would get would be things like, well, nobody's ever told me they don't trust me. Oh, they talk to me, they tell me everything, they ask me questions.
Yeah.
Well, people are going to do that regardless of whether they trust you because you have a sense of control over their future. And that can be problematic or a blind spot for many leaders. We start with the very first pillar, which is your words. So, are your words credible? Do you show wisdom? Do you have intuition? Do you, when you communicate, do you express interest in not just the mind and the business? Do you get straight into the business or do you care about the person too? So are you connecting to the heart and the mind? Another framework we have, which is our communication framework, right? So that's exactly what we're looking at is, are your words
Yeah.
acting in trust? And so that's the very first pillar. The second pillar would be your actions, of course. Do you do
Yeah.
what you say you're going to do? This is really, really key in following up. How many folks have said, yeah, I'll give you a shout next week. And then next week comes and the week after comes and the week after that comes. And that person has given up and moved on to the next person. And so I think a lot of miss happens in that follow up. And of course, we've heard in direct
Yeah.
sales over and over again, it's all about the follow up. It's all about the follow up,
Yeah.
the magic of 8, so making sure you follow up at least 8 times. And I would say way more than that.
Yeah.
But it's not
I'd say
just,
8 is dated. And
there you
it
go.
hasn't aged well in a noisy world, right? Oh my
Yes, you
gosh.
are
8 is dated.
absolutely
Yeah.
true.
I'm a fan
Yes,
of what
that's
Shannon
so
just shared
right.
there, everyone. We used to teach zero to, as a side note to this thought, we used to teach it was 3 connections, 3 touches on a warm connection. And on
Okay.
cold,
Yeah.
you got to go long. It's 8 to 9.
Yeah. Yeah.
Today we teach it's 8 on warm, and on cold it can be upwards of 30, guys.
Oh,
You guys got
yeah.
Yeah.
to hear that. That's what we see right now
Absolutely.
on real numbers. So Shannon's not wrong. Like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Your words really do matter. And it's not just your words.
Yeah.
So it's about how you use those words. It's about how you
Yeah.
communicate. It's about, are you talking too much and not listening enough? Are you taking up all the air in the room? Are you
Yeah.
leaving space for questions? Are you pushing back when an objection comes your way and getting defensive? One of our favorite quotes at TAP is, when defenses go up, ability to listen and or learn goes down every
Yeah.
single time. I don't care if you're
Makes
2,
sense.
22, or
Yeah.
102. So I'll say it again because it's really important. When defenses go up, ability to listen and learn goes down. And so if
Love
you
that.
are out there talking to folks and you are putting their defenses up, you're not getting anywhere past that point, and that's not going to get you anywhere. So, and then there's the piece about your tone. Are you showing excitement? Are you
Yeah.
present in the moment? Are you showing up prepared? These are all things that have to do with your words. And listen, we all sometimes get busy and we're not always as
Yeah.
prepared as we want to be, but we kind of have to be in that space at
Yeah.
all times because you never know,
Yes.
especially in direct sales, when your next prospect's going to stand in front of you.
Absolutely.
So it's
Yeah.
that preparation. So that's your words. So that's the second pillar, but there's three more. Do you guys have any guesses of what some of the other pillars might be?
I'm wondering if it actually is the offer anywhere in your pillars, is what I'm curious about. So, of them
Ah,
actually connecting. I'm wondering, so when people put so much emphasis on that and
yeah,
they think, oh, yeah, our success and our framework's all going to be about the value and the offer.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
but I think it's actually belief got to come up because we've all heard that some stuff says 60, some say 90% of
yeah,
communication's nonverbal, right? And
yeah,
the only way to get nonverbal communication right is beliefs, right? You have to
yeah.
actually believe what you're saying because you can't force all the
Yeah.
nonverbal.
No,
And
you
so,
can't. You
so,
can't.
so when that much of it is nonverbal, right? It's not the words you're saying, and you're here to establish trust relationships. You have to actually believe what you're saying.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
do. You
We gotta help
do.
people do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Speak with the
absolutely.
conviction. Yeah.
Beliefs are in there. They're wrapped into our Elevate framework, which we'll go into right after we get through the TAP trust model. But let me move on. So the third pillar is around safety. It's around your emotions. Do you emotionally respond? Do you get defensive if someone asks a
Mhm.
tough question? What if someone says something like, you're in direct sales and that's just a pyramid scheme? Are you going to
Yeah.
get all up in arms, or are you going to rationally and emotionally make yourself available to answer those
Yeah.
tough questions? So you have to stay balanced. You have to allow people the space to ask those questions, because how are they going to ever get over one of those obstacles, which, by the way, brings you back to your belief. So if
Yeah.
you never address the things that get in the way of your belief, guess what doesn't happen? You never believe. So you
Yeah.
have to create that space, right? And this is all part of being a successful business person. And, we really spend a lot of time in the direct sales space, but we also spend time in other spaces with other types of entrepreneurs. And it remains the same because trust is so integral to every part of your business. That safety, that emotions, are you going to stay calm and measured? And what if something goes the way that you didn't plan it to go? What
Yeah.
if there is, some big news at your company and now all of a sudden, people are asking tough questions? You have to create that space and keep yourself calm through that. Your panic will translate to your team if you're not careful.
Mm.
It's really interesting because I do some other types of work. And one of the things that we talk about is how, when we are leaders, we have to really be careful that we don't bring everything down to our teams. So,
Yeah.
for example, let's say you're working in some sort of big manufacturing place and something bad happens, and all of a sudden you're feeling that heat. Well, part of being a leader is actually staying calm so that you don't pass that down to your team. And so
Yeah.
let's say there's bad press or something happens and something gets discontinued that you love and everybody else loves. If you
Exactly.
have
Mm.
that emotional response, then you're going to see that other people will feed off of that. The other piece of your emotions is psychological safety, making sure that you're confidential, that you're creating space for them to be able to be confident, to build them up when they're feeling a little low, those sorts of
Mm.
things. So that's your third pillar. Your fourth
Yeah.
is authenticity. I'm sure that doesn't come as a
Yeah.
surprise.
No.
At one point, I don't know that authenticity was really something that people saw as valuable in business. To be honest, I know I have gone into, back in the day before I had my own company, I did an interview and they told me, you know what, Shannon, you killed the interview, you killed it, but you're a little too authentic for us.
Oh.
And
Too
no word of a
authentic.
lie, no word of a lie. Now, authenticity is what gets you the job.
Yeah.
You know why? Because the modern workforce, the modern consumer has absolutely changed in their values and they value authenticity. So that's really, really important. And not only that, you have to be congruent in that. So authenticity is about, okay, so I say I value honesty, and then you catch me in a little white lie.
Mhm.
Now, little white lies don't necessarily break
Yeah.
trust. No, at least not in the first run. Okay.
Sure.
Little white lie. Most people kind of let it go over their shoulder. They don't worry about it too much, unless I have talked nonstop about how honesty is one of my values,
Yeah.
and now all of a sudden it's a red flag.
Yeah.
Because if you
True.
can cross that value, your core value, the one that you talk so much about, honesty, then what else can you do?
True.
Now all of a sudden I'm not trusting you,
Yeah.
right? And that's problematic in direct sales, okay?
Yeah.
And then the very last pillar of trust, which all our frameworks are built upon, is our intentions. Now, this is a big one because there's an automatic assumption based on a lot of bad behavior. So if you happen to be in direct sales, someone somewhere has probably done you dirty and, you know, spammed someone, jumped into the sale right away, looked for something that they could get instead of something they could give. And intentions matter. They're not everything, okay? Because impact really matters as well. But they're certainly a part of the trust equation or bridge or model that you want to build upon.
Yeah. It's
And those
context at the end of the
intentions,
day.
those motives really matter.
Yeah, it's context. You're giving the other person your view of how you see it.
Yeah,
This is my intentions of how it's
absolutely.
going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there's another piece to intentions and motives, and that's judgments. Another one. So this is also something that will cause someone to kind of, give you that face, cringe a little if you're really judgmental. About maybe what they've done before, how they're doing their life, what products they use. You have to be really careful because what could happen, and for certain, it's not usually on purpose, but what can happen is you can really get in the way of building a trusting relationship if you are being judgmental about what they're doing and how they're living their lives. And so you have to be really, really careful that in that desire to sell your product, that you're not now tearing down something else, because that can really break it down. And you have to remember when it comes to trust, it has to go both ways. And here's the kicker. It's not like if I always do what I say I'm going to do, I'm going to build trust. Because even if your motives are pure, if someone thinks that they're not, then there's already a break. And that may not have much to do with you. That may have to do with how somebody else has approached them, where they've been, their life experiences. You see, everybody comes to the table with different trust levels, what we call trust levels. And that has, they do.
Yep.
And it has very little to do with the interaction that's happening in the moment.
Sure.
And everything to do with their life experience. It could be, problem childhood. It could be a bad experience with another company. It could be that you look like someone that, reminds them of someone else that broke their trust.
Yep.
And so people will come to the table with different levels. And here's the thing, before any framework you look at, and that's why I started with this one, is if you don't have that foundation of trust, doesn't matter what you build upon it, it's not a strong foundation.
And really understand this is that someone can be living in their intentions and doing everything they said they'd do, and it just doesn't connect with another person. It's not equal. It's not the same thing. And you can be authentically living your best life and not connect with other people. This is where you rewind to how Shannon opened, and she talked about listening and the power of listening, because that's the gift. Is if you can truly listen first, you can hear their context, what's going on in their life, and you can see where you can add value with curiosity, right?
Mhm.
Ah, curious. That's interesting. That was your experience, right? Have you ever thought of
Yes.
this? I had another.
Yes.
Maybe you don't relate at all.
Yeah.
Maybe they're so different from you as your listener
Yeah.
that you don't
Yeah.
relate at all. Your
Yeah.
intentions are very different. Your goals in life are wildly different than theirs.
Yeah.
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 One of the best things a mentor taught me with Shannon's framework, guys, that you can hear is you can always say, "Hey, I know someone who's just like you, right? And
Hmm.
they felt this way, and then I found
Yeah.
this." That's the power of being a good listener in
Yeah.
Yeah.
relationships is maybe they aren't aligned. There's someone else who is connected in the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
It
definitely.
feels like a lot when you hear the framework like this, Shannon. It's one of
Yeah.
those things where it's like mentally we do so much of the stuff subconsciously.
Yeah.
Hmm.
We don't put mental energy into many of these pillars
Yeah.
in truth,
True.
right?
Yeah.
Like if you have to think about being honest and authentic all day long, you're
Mm.
probably not a very honest and authentic person. You probably should just choose
Yeah.
to be honest and authentic all day long. Implementing this has become the time here, right? I'm just curious, like where have people got this thing wrong? And one of the things I know Amir asks all the time, he always
Yeah.
asks, what's the pitfalls? This is a
Yeah.
question in
Yeah.
his
That's
framework.
the next question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, well, I know in his interview framework, he gets this all the time. And I'm just, a lot of the stuff is like, we know we want trusted relationships, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When people are trying so hard, where do they actually get this
Mm.
wrong? It's what I'm curious about. Like
Yeah.
it's just interesting.
Mostly is that it's not thought about at all. People don't give it a second thought. They don't think, oh, I've got
Yeah.
to build trust before I can move to the next level. They go
Mm.
straight into selling.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. The modern
Noise.
consumer, they're
Noise.
not looking for the product
Yeah.
if they don't trust you or the
Right.
industry or the sales channel or the
Mm.
product, or the method,
Yeah.
so you actually have to show interest. This is really what it comes down to, is creating an environment where you can uncover your blind spots. And that's what we do, is we really spend a lot of time uncovering blind spots. If I
Yeah.
can share a quick story with you. We had a
Yeah. Sure.
company who came to us and they said, listen, can you come in and do a program for our corporate team? We're really struggling with communicating and collaboration. So we think we need a program built on communication and collaboration. And I
Yeah.
said to them, as I do with most clients, can I ask some more questions?
Yeah.
And I started being curious.
Yeah.
And with that curiosity, I uncovered through some very quick conversations, it didn't take me long. I came back to, that decision maker and said, by all means, we can give you a communication workshop, no problem. We can give you a collaboration workshop, no problem. But you don't have a communication problem. You have a
Yeah.
trust problem. And what happens when you have a trust problem?
Nothing else matters.
Nobody talks to each other.
True.
Nobody works
Yeah.
together,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so that's the thing, is it doesn't get talked about enough. We all know it. We all know it in
Mm.
our heads that trust is really important, but we don't actively go, am I
Yeah.
emotionally
Yeah.
regulated? Am I doing what I said I would do? And here's the thing. A lot of folks in my room, when we talk about trust and we kind of dive into it, will say, well, when I do it, I always try. And I say, okay, but there's a step after that breaks trust, and a step after that actually builds it. That is a simple conversation. It's going back
True.
to your words again. It's letting them know. It doesn't matter if you bent over backwards, if you did backflips to try and make it happen. If you don't tell the other person, they'll never know that's what you did to try to make it happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to do that. And we're just seeing so many people, not just in the field, we're seeing it in corporate. I think that the most successful organizations that we are working with understand that we actually have to walk that talk. We have to
Yeah.
be the leaders, and we're the ones who are going to influence the behavior. Because if we can't do it in
True.
our corporate teams, how on earth is our field going to do it?
Exactly.
They're
Exactly.
Yep.
not.
They're not.
It's that
You know,
simple.
walking into this conversation with what Shannon's sharing, gang, it reminds my business partner of the last 16 years, Rod Kirby, who's the founder of Nax and that I've worked with for a long time. Rod
Right.
has this line he shares constantly with our leadership teams where he's always reminding, he says, Ben, there's no neutral exchange. He says this line all the time. I love this pick.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and Rod didn't come up with this. We read lots of books together, right? But the part we remind teams of all the time is there's no neutral exchange. Every time you touch a human, every time you connect, whether it's on a phone, Zoom, wherever you are, in their trust account, right? They
Mhm.
either love and trust you more or
Yeah.
less,
Or
right?
less.
There's just no neutral exchange. There's
Neutral.
it's never, oh yeah, it's the same. Oh, I kind of feel the same after that last
Yeah.
True.
connection. You either add it to it or you detracted from it everywhere
It's
you go
absolutely true.
all day. Did you add a debit or credit to the trust account
Yeah.
when you were with that person for
Yeah.
that moment?
Yeah.
Were you present and connecting and loving in that moment? Like,
Yeah.
did you care enough to respect them as a human to pay attention and connect in that moment? Or were you just, oh, I'm multitasking over here
Mhm.
and I'm over here. Come on, guys, right? And this is
Yeah.
stuff we know. And I think that the part that's so helpful in what Shannon's saying about this roadblock of not thinking of trust enough, picture for you guys. This picture came to my mind as I'm just listening. It's almost like you're going down a hallway, and because
Mm.
you're going right into selling or the offer, that's what's taught. You're like shouting into a closed door. Like the
Hmm.
door's not even open
Yeah.
yet, right?
Yeah.
And it's like no one would do that physically, but why don't you open the door
Yeah.
first? And
Yeah.
some of the masters that I've run into in life, I'll give a shout out because I'm proud of this guy. I'm going to say Luke Tuffieri. I love this man. He was ran head of international markets for longevity for years, co-founder of Free Life International, runs a direct selling company called Beyond Slim today. Luke's been a client of mine for years. I love connecting with Luke, and I'll tell you guys why. Different people have been guests on the show, and Luke. Every time you're on a phone call with this guy, what does he say? He's like, "Hey, how's the family?" Before we get started with the business,
Hmm.
how's the family?
Yeah.
Hey, how's your wife? After being in business with this guy for gonna be 6 years, I actually think he cares. I
Yeah.
don't believe it's a tactic. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
truly do
Yeah.
not believe it's a tactic.
Yeah.
I believe that Luke likes to do life with people he loves. And when he asks that question, it's not a tactic. He actually cares about my wife and my children.
Yeah.
I feel that every time we connect.
Yeah.
And no matter what we're working on, the world could be on fire and we're pouring fire extinguishers on the fire. But
Hmm.
in that first moment we connect, I trust the guy more
Yeah.
Yeah.
every time, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a
Yeah.
powerful reminder. So if you get anything from today on our time on the podcast, is that picture of are you
Mm.
skipping this
Hmm.
trust step?
I won't dive into this, but I do want your listeners
Mhm.
to walk away with something outside of the trust piece. And if there's any curiosity around diving into this more, we definitely can. But one of the things that I get a lot of is once we establish that trust,
Mm.
what do I do next?
Sure.
Yeah.
How am I going to be the leader I need to be? How am I going to learn, how to lead other people? And leadership is really around influence. It's not about
Mm.
managing tasks, it's about influence. We have a framework for elevating your leadership, and I'll just bring you through the steps. It's an
Sure.
acronym, so it's pretty easy to remember. Okay.
Sure.
And by all means, I do have some of these sort of job aids, so to speak, or a cheat sheet that I would be happy to send over your
We
way
can
so that
add
you
in
can
the
Sure.
show
into your.
notes. We'll get a
There
link
you
in the
Absolutely.
show
go.
notes,
Yeah.
everybody.
There
All
you
right.
go.
We'll
Shannon's
love
got
that.
some fun stuff
So
for you.
yeah, so I can give you the model and this one.
We'll
So let
get
me
the
just
URL.
read them through, okay? The
Oh.
first one is embrace accountability.
Mm.
What
Mm.
does that mean? It means take ownership. Take ownership of where you're going, how you're
Yeah.
going to get there. You have to lead that way if you want other people to lead that way. You have to be really keeping self-leadership in mind. The second of that is to lead with trust. And of course, that's why I started with trust, because it's no
Yeah.
good for me. I could have jumped in to elevate. I could have. That will not
Yeah.
be helpful if you don't
True.
understand. Oh, yeah, well, trust. Yeah, people
Yeah.
trust me. Oh, no, I
Yeah.
need you to think about that
Yeah.
because most
Yeah.
people think that they're being trusted when they're not.
Yeah.
So using those 5 pillars, one's broken, the bridge is unstable. Okay.
Yeah.
The third is excel through recovery. And what does that mean
Mm.
exactly? So recovery is all about when you fall, how to get back
Mm.
up again. That's what it comes
Yeah.
down to. And a lot of times we see people give up way too simply or easily, mostly because they feel stuck, mostly because they feel they've lost that confidence. But it might have been because they didn't prepare themselves to go in. So
Mm.
making sure that you can regulate that pressure when someone says no, or someone asks you a tough question, or someone attacks you on
Yeah.
social media. It happens. So how do you
Yeah.
recover in those moments? Or, your company gets bad press. How do I keep going? Every entrepreneur I've ever worked with, if they're still building their business and growing their business, has to master recovery.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Number 4 is value strong leadership. And that really comes down to not telling people what to do, influencing their behaviors, really understanding the difference between management. And there's a term that we use in direct sales. We go into management mode where
Sure.
we're starting
Yeah.
to do work for everybody else, right?
Yep.
Oh, well, my team, they're not doing the work, so I got to do it because I want to get to
Enablement
the
instead
next
of
phase.
empowerment. Exactly. Yeah.
So you have to understand what it means to lead. And you can manage your own tasks. You need to do that.
Agreed.
But you shouldn't be managing other people in direct sales. Number 5 would be achieve with purpose. And this one's not a surprise to most people because they get involved because they have a bigger why.
Agreed.
And that purpose has to be tied to your values. It has to be tied to who you are as an individual. And you have to believe in the company that you're working with. Okay.
Yeah.
And then thrive in community. Again, not rocket science. I don't teach rocket science. If you came for rocket science, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but that's what it comes down to. And the very last, energized communication, making sure you're connecting to the heart and the head. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the framework. You want to know more? By all means, reach out. Happy to talk about it another time. So I hope it's helpful.
You know what I love about you and Umair putting this together and just having this in this short time today is that I hope that the people listening can ask the question, do I actually know what my leadership framework is? One of the things that I love about frameworks like what Shannon unpacked today is you can grab it and you can download the document and you can look at it and you can say, okay, this is a framework.
Yeah.
Does this one fit for me? Is this me? And some of you are going to just grab it and run with it, and it's good. And it works.
Yes.
Other of you are
Yes.
going to, I always tell the young people when we're reading books together and our staff, I always say, eat the meat and spit out the bones with this one, which means like grab the stuff that works for you and let go of the stuff that doesn't. And so my hope for each of you today on the show, just as listening to I'm just so wildly grateful for her time breaking away to join us today.
Yeah.
The whole part of, hey, if you're not clear, like if you can't have a conversation at dinner with one of your field reps on the leadership team, or if you're a field rep and you can't with a new rep and say, guys, this is our leadership framework. Like this is what we believe about ourselves and who we are. If you can't do that yet,
Yeah.
you need one. And so grab Shannon until you figure out what yours is.
Mhm.
Is literally what I would say. I love that about frameworks is go grab it. Does it fit? Something doesn't fit? Okay, pull it out. But go grab one so that you understand and have one. The frameworks are what's going to duplicate. Your time is not finite in the time equation, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the part that we look for today. But this is just a total treat to have this time.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing this time. So with that, have an amazing day, everybody.
If you haven't yet joined the DSEF group on LinkedIn, go to directSellingExecutiveForum.com or go on LinkedIn and search for Direct Selling Executive Forum to apply. The group is free and is an invite-only community of direct selling executives by direct selling executives.